Welcome to the Positively Joyful Productivity Show, where joy isn't a reward for productivity, it's the secret ingredient. I'm your host, Nicole Louise, coach, wife, and dog mom. This is a no-kid zone by design, created for women who are child-free, childless, or an empty nester embracing your next chapter. You all belong here. Each week, you'll hear inspiring stories from women around the world and learn tools, mindset shifts, and practical strategies for living a joyful life. You'll also discover the science behind why focusing on joy fuels focus, motivation, and lasting productivity. Let's get inspired, get organized, and create a life full of freedom, focus, and joy. Well, hey there, and welcome to the Positively Joyful Productivity Show. I am your host, Nicole Louise, and today we are going to talk about boundaries. This is something that's so important in terms of reclaiming your time and energy and increasing your productivity. So, if you're new to the show, welcome. I'm really glad that you're tuning in today. This is kind of more of like a heavy-duty show that you're tuning into, but welcome nonetheless. I'm excited that you're here, so let's dive in. I want to just share with you on a personal note, as I frequently do, that boundaries are something that I struggled with for years. I struggled to speak up for myself, and I always put everybody else before me because I was afraid of upsetting everyone else. And maybe you can relate to that. So, we're going to talk about setting boundaries and why it's so hard, the different kinds of boundaries. And I also want to start with just reassuring you that you are not alone, and I don't want you to feel strange or like something is wrong with you if you're not setting boundaries, because listen, this is something that is incredibly difficult, especially for women. We are raised and taught from a very young age that we are supposed to put everyone else's needs before our own. And so saying no is really freaking hard. So again, do not feel like you're missing something, like you're behind, like something's wrong with you, because there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are not alone in this by any stretch of the imagination. And so, all right, let's get into it. We're going to talk about some actionable steps, the different kinds of boundaries, and how to maintain those boundaries without guilt. Let's get into it, shall we? All right. I did a little digging and I read quite a few articles about boundaries. And depending on who you talk to, boundaries can mean different things. And there's different kinds of boundaries. But I found one article that kind of broke it down really nicely and did a really good job of kind of giving an overview of what the different boundaries are. So this article is called Why Personal Boundaries Are Important and How to Set Them. And it's put out by Psych Central. So they break down boundaries into a few different categories. There are 6 of them. So the first type of boundary is an emotional boundary. So this is simply protecting your own emotional well-being. The second type is physical, so protecting your physical space, whether that is you yourself and like your personal bubble, or even like your physical environment, so like your home, your car, things that belong to you in that sense. There is sexual boundaries, which is protecting your need and safety sexually. Workplace boundaries, so that's protecting your ability to do your work without interference or drama. The 5th one is material boundaries, which is protecting your personal belongings. So I looped that in with physical boundaries. I think those two kind of overlap because I read another article that put them together. So that's where my brain is going. And the last one is time boundaries, which are protecting the use and misuse of your time. So for us, especially ambitious, empathetic professionals, boundaries are so critical for our success um, overall in life. And so let's talk a little bit about how boundary setting impacts productivity, specifically your emotional wellness and your overall joy. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Oh, and before I do that, I just wanted to highlight I'm not going to cover all six categories of boundaries. I'm going to stick to emotional, physical, workplace, and time boundaries for this episode. Um, we can get into material a little bit, but sexual boundaries, that's probably for a different podcast. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how boundaries can impact your productivity, emotional wellness, and joy. So I'm going to start with time. So when you set boundaries around your time, that allows you to get things done that you need to before moving on to something or someone else. So, for example, like your friend wants to meet up for coffee. Well, I need to, write this report for my boss before I can go do that. Otherwise, my boss will be really mad and there will be consequences at work if I don't get this done. So, therefore, I need to do that first. Now, that's a pretty simple one. Generally speaking, your friends are probably easygoing and would completely understand that. But again, that's an example of where things can go also go awry. I know for me personally, years ago, I probably would have said, "Oh, okay, I can just do this later," because I didn't want to upset my friends. They were so excited to get together and chit chat and have coffee, right? So surface level seems simple, but you see how quickly we can get into our head and get derailed. So let's talk about physical space. So maybe you don't want children running around your clean, organized, not childproof home. So that's an example of, you know, your overall joy, emotional wellness, and productivity. Because if you have children running around your home, you're going to have to spend time cleaning up after them, right? Ah, and let's talk about boosting your joy. So when you set boundaries, you increase your joy because you don't end up walking away from situations feeling bad, feeling frustrated, or like, I should have said X, Y, or Z. I can't tell you how many times I have walked away from situations in my life feeling and saying those very things because I didn't set boundaries. So now I'm older and wiser, right? So just to give you like a sense of this, I used to go along with what everyone else wanted because I thought that I was being flexible and agreeable. And I thought that those were good qualities. And I thought that that's what people wanted was, they don't want someone who's going to say no to things, right? That's bad. However, I often found myself not enjoying whatever activity I had agreed to. I found myself stuck in situations that I didn't want to be in, or things taking way too long and thinking about all the things that I had to get done for myself, and this other thing was taking up my time. And my family is notorious for this. So if you visit, you end up stuck there for the entire day. It's like you get sucked into the black hole of their home and other family members and I joke about this, but it's serious. It's like you get sucked in and it's like, oh my goodness. But so you get sucked in, and then when it's time to leave, they want to show you one more thing, which ends up turning into hours and hours and hours of more nonsense. I always left feeling frustrated that I was there for so long and I never spoke up for myself. I felt defeated. Now that I've, done some work and I've grown up and, learned a few things, I've figured out how to Houdini my way out of there. And man, it feels so good. I know that I have agency over my decisions, and it feels so empowering to be in control because I have now set those boundaries. So, let's talk about some common signs of weak or maybe non-existent boundaries in your life. So these are some things that you can ask yourself, and if you're saying yes to these, you might want to look at your boundaries or lack thereof. So if you feel resentful or overwhelmed frequently, in especially in social situations, then that might be a sign that you need to set a boundary somewhere. If you find yourself always saying yes out of guilt or obligation, that is a sign that you need to set a boundary. And if you consistently and constantly ignore your personal needs to accommodate everybody else, that is a sign, my dear, that you need to set a boundary. And in my previous example, I definitely said yes to all of these. These are things that I definitely struggled with, and still do. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not perfect. I'm not, over this. Like, I still struggle with these things. Um, I think the advantage now is that I'm aware of, where I'm doing these things, and I'm aware of like, okay, I can set a boundary here and, work on that, work on communicating that and moving forward. So let's talk about some strategies, empowering strategies for setting boundaries that are going to give you a little more confidence in tough situations. So the first thing that you need to do is clarify your non-negotiables. So like, what are those things that might make you uncomfortable or make you feel a certain way? Um, and you want to list what really matters, your personal time, hobbies, relationships, things like that. So make sure you're very, very clear on your non-negotiable things. And then step two, you want to practice firm, clear communication. So it's really important to communicate your boundaries with other people. So you can practice with a trusted friend. You can use ChatGPT to bounce ideas off of. But you definitely want to have clear, firm communication. And I'll give you an example of this in just a moment. And then the third strategy is to reinforce your boundaries through consistency. And so when someone tests your boundary or crosses the line with you, that's a great opportunity where I don't even want to say opportunity. Well, it is an opportunity. You need to reinforce that boundary, is what I'm getting at. So if somebody is crossing your boundary, crossing that line with you, you have to go back to clearly stating what your boundary is and the fact that they disrespected that. So now I'm going to use my family when you get sucked into their black hole as an example. So, what happens now versus what used to happen? So, again, what used to happen, I would just spend like literally the entire day there, and I'd be like, okay, I gotta go now. And it would be like, oh, well, let me show you this. Or, oh my gosh, did you hear about that? And then it would just go on and on and on. And I would just get sucked back into the drama. And it was really difficult for me at that time in my life to get out of that cycle. And so, what I do now is I use my dog, Abby, as my exit strategy. I state that I need to get home because I have to let her out and feed her, which signals to them, or at least to me, maybe they don't get it. I don't think they do, but it at least signals the urgency of like, I have to leave now. Like there is something important that I have to get to, and I'm leaving. Again, I don't think they still fully understand or get it, but I stick to my reason because it's a pretty darn good reason to walk out the door. Even if they're still talking to me, like I just grab my coat, grab my purse, and I just start walking out the door because I'm like, I know what's going to happen here. This is going to go on and on and on. And I just leave because I know I know the cycle. And so that's what I have to do now is just physically signal it is time for me to go now. And the visit time is over. Like we are done. We had our fun and now we're done. So that's an example of how I clearly state and reinforce my boundary. Um, and my non-negotiable is like, I do, in fact, have to get home and take care of Abby. Like, she's a living animal. She needs me. So, that's a non-negotiable for me, my pupper. Okay. So we've gone over quite a lot. This is kind of a shorty episode, but this was jam-packed with a lot of information. So I want you to think about yourself and think about your own life and areas where maybe setting a boundary is going to help you. And what's going to happen is, oh, and I didn't even get into this, but let's tie it back to productivity here. So, in my example with my family, when it's time to go, I'm grabbing my stuff and I'm out the door. So, productivity wise, I'm getting home at a much more reasonable time so that I can continue on with my own life, right? And do what I need to do. And the same can be at work. If you have a chatty Cathy who sits next to you all the time and she's like da 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 all day long, setting that clear boundary with her, like, listen, chatty Cathy, I really need to focus on this assignment. Billy Boss needs my work done by 10 a.m. I really need to focus right now. Let's talk at lunch. That's a really clear way to state your boundary to chatty Cathy, and you're giving logical reasons why you need that boundary. You don't have to give reasons. That's something I want to point out too. You don't have to give reasons. I find in certain situations, such as with my family, it does kind of help reinforce or like back up my boundary, if you will. But you don't have to. Like, remember, we don't owe anyone an explanation for anything. However, sometimes it does come in handy, especially with people who it's really, really difficult to set a boundary with. I do want to caution you though, if you are backing up your boundary with a reason, I really want you to keep it short and concise. Don't go into this big, lengthy explanation about, well, I have to get home and then I have to do this and then I have to do that and da da da, because that leaves room for them to poke holes in it and turn it back around on you. I know because I've been there enough times. So I'm just cautioning you on that. So if you do want to use like backup for your boundary, you can just make it really short and to the point. Okay. All right. So now that we've covered additional content, I want to give you some things to think about and some, ways to kind of incorporate this into your life. So I want you to consider, and if you are someone who likes to journal, feel free to use these as journal prompts. If you're not into journaling, totally fine. Listen and respond in your own time. So I want you to think about, what boundary do you need most urgently in your life right now? So think about your personal life, think about your work life, think about your productivity. Like, what is hindering your productivity the most? What is hindering your joy the most? And where can you set a boundary? And then the next thing I want you to consider or journal on is, what is one small step that you can take today to reinforce this boundary? Okay, so I want you to write it in your journal, write it on a sticky note, think it out loud, do whatever you need to do. I want you to hold yourself accountable in this, because on this podcast, I can't do that for you. So I'm handing that responsibility to you. You need to be accountable for yourself. You've got this. I know you do. So go ahead and do that exercise right now. What boundary do you need most urgently right now? And then what is one small step that you can take to reinforce that? Okay, that is going to wrap up today's episode. That was a deep one, but a good one, necessary for sure. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you have a beautiful, productive, and joyful week ahead, and I will chat with you very soon.